Hollywood carefully controlled what the world was allowed to see, but these rare photographs captured the moments that happened when the cameras weren't supposed to matter. And once you see them, some of these stars may never look quite the same again. Marilyn Monroe looks completely unguarded here, caught in a pool during Something's Got to Give in 1962, far from the polished image Hollywood usually sold. That same off-duty feeling follows Brigitte Bardot home to Paris in 1957, where toys, a small table, and an ordinary room replace the usual glamour. By 1983, Morgan, Brittany, and Jamie Lee Curtis look less like stars and more like two friends sharing a cause. Sophia Loren could command any camera, yet this 1,961 portrait feels striking because almost nothing distracts from the confidence in her expression. Then there's Frank Sinatra, giving Ginger Rogers a tentative kiss on the cheek before movie audiences had ever seen him kiss a leading lady on camera. Anne Margaret's 1,977 mirror portrait turns a simple pose into something theatrical without needing a film set. Rita Hayworth offers the opposite kind of moment, casually changing into tights in 1939, long before candid backstage images became part of celebrity culture. Elizabeth Taylor was only 13 when she posed beside King Charles, the horse connected to National Velvet, already carrying the screen presence that made her unforgettable. By the 1970s, Raquel Welch could make a relaxed, poolside moment feel completely camera-ready. Vera Ellen, surrounded by small objects and decorations in the 1950s, gives us another glimpse of Hollywood life that feels surprisingly personal rather than staged. Priscilla Presley is equally relaxed at home in Beverly Hills in 1975, photographed poolside with none of the ceremony people often associate with famous families. Before television fame, Barbara Eden was already a young beauty pageant winner, crowned Miss San Francisco in 1951. Sometimes one photograph feels like a Hollywood time capsule. Dean Martin, Audrey Hepburn, director William Wyler, Frank Sinatra, and Shirley MacLaine all sharing the same room. Sharon Tate's 1,969 London portrait is even more playful, posing beside a Humpty Dumpty toy while working on the film, 12+1. Suzanne Somers appears effortlessly athletic here, years before that energetic image became part of her public identity. Esther Williams built a career around elegance and movement, yet this colorful portrait reminds us how naturally she carried that screen star presence away from the water. Anne Sheridan, Anne Sothern, and Hedy Lamarr look less like legends here and more like friends over a meal. Dolly Parton was just 20 when she married Carl Dean in 1966, while he was 23, beginning a relationship that largely stayed outside Hollywood spectacle. Sandra Dee turned something as ordinary as shoe shopping into a memorable candid moment, simply closing her eyes for a rest in 1960. Linda Carter's 1970s street snapshot feels almost modern, casual enough to have been taken decades later. Gina Lollobrigida's corset fitting for crossed swords shows the less glamorous side of costume work, where preparation often mattered as much as the finished scene. Natalie Wood's soaked, candid look came after filming Penelope, when a jump into the pool to retrieve jewelry created a moment no studio portrait could match. Jacqueline Bisset's quiet 1960s portrait relies almost entirely on expression and posture to hold the frame. Jane Mansfield and Clint Eastwood signing autographs for young fans on an airplane in 1962 captures celebrity before the age of selfies and instant social media. A young Helen Mirren looks remarkably self-possessed here, a reminder that some performers seem to carry their future confidence long before worldwide recognition arrives. Behind the camera, Carol Landis is caught on the set of Behind Green Lights in 1946, where the work looks far less polished than the finished movie. Mara Corday faces the camera with the polished confidence that defined classic studio portraiture. Dean Martin leans toward Debbie Reynolds while Jack Benny watches, turning a formal gathering into a frame full of personality and spontaneous humor. During production of The Man Who Knew Too Much in 1956, Doris Day and James Stewart share a musical break that feels warmer than any publicity still. Jamie Lee Curtis and her sister Kelly appear beside their mother, Janet Leigh, on the set of An American Dream in 1966, years before Jamie's own fame. Lana Wood's portrait shifts the mood, replacing cheerful glamour with a quieter, more intense presence. Tuesday Weld, photographed outdoors, has the almost unplanned look of a private snapshot, which is exactly what makes these old images so easy to connect with. Jane Russell and Marilyn Monroe in 1953 remind us how much personality existed between takes, when two major stars could simply laugh together on set. At home in the 1940s, Lauren Bacall appears completely comfortable, a different kind of elegance from the carefully lit portraits that defined classic Hollywood. Donna Reed and John Derek arrive at the Michigan Theater in 1951, capturing that old movie premiere atmosphere when a single screening could feel like a major civic event. Valerie Reynolds, Jean Carmen, and Mamie Van Doren turn a January 1957 gathering into pure mid-century energy, all expression, laughter, and unmistakable star presence. Rita Moreno in the 1950s shows how much classic glamour could come from confidence alone. At Cannes in 1959, Kim Novak and Cary Grant share a close conversation, the kind of fleeting festival moment photographers were always hoping to catch. Joan Collins throws her arms upward, making a simple black-and-white pose feel like a performance. Decades later, Claudia Schiffer brought that same effortless camera awareness to Palm Beach in 1989, photographed poolside by Ellen von Unwerth. Carrie Fisher, hanging out with stormtroopers while promoting The Empire Strikes Back in London, is the rare publicity photo that feels genuinely playful instead of carefully controlled. Audrey Hepburn's 1954 Academy Award win for Roman Holiday captures a career-changing instant, but her expression still feels more delighted than ceremonially glamorous. Hedy Lamarr proves how powerful studio portraiture could be when one unforgettable face carried the entire frame. Behind the scenes of Jaws in 1975, the famous shark suddenly looks far less terrifying, exposing the strange mechanical reality hidden behind movie magic. On a Malibu beach in 1956, Elaine Stewart, Hugh O'Brien, and Natalie Wood look like friends on vacation rather than stars surrounded by cameras. Without heavy makeup, Veronica Lake looks strikingly different from the carefully constructed screen image audiences knew. Diana Dors and her first husband, Dennis Hamilton, arrive in New York in July 1956, posing for photographers with the bright confidence expected of celebrity newlyweds. Brigitte Bardot returns, this time photographed by Dean Loomis on the set of La Femme et la Pantin in 1958, caught between work and performance. Elizabeth Montgomery and Dick York share a festive moment that instantly brings back the chemistry audiences remember, even outside the polished world of television. When Elvis Presley met Sophia Loren, the encounter became playful almost immediately, and these photographs preserve a meeting between two very different kinds of international stardom. On The Misfits in 1960, Montgomery Clift, Marilyn Monroe, and Clark Gable look remarkably relaxed together, despite the enormous weight those three names now carry. Romy Schneider sits beside the Seine in Paris in 1973, while two older women nearby seem completely unaware that a major film star is sitting beside them. Jacqueline Smith's portrait is polished, but the straightforward framing gives it a quieter, more personal character. Pam Grier's 1970s portrait changes the energy completely, projecting confidence and strength in a way that made her screen presence impossible to ignore. Lee Majors and Farrah Fawcett cruising through Los Angeles in 1977 feels less like publicity and more like a glimpse through the window of an ordinary afternoon. Grace Kelly's elegance feels almost effortless here, which is exactly why even simple photographs of her remain cinematic. Brooke Shields, surrounded by members of the Jackson family, captures two enormous corners of pop culture colliding in one wonderfully crowded photograph. Anne Margaret, photographed by Harry Langdon in 1980, turns a dramatic fashion pose into pure movement, showing how confidently she could control a still frame. The cast of What's New Pussycat gathers in 1965, bringing Romy Schneider, Ursula Andress, Peter O'Toole, Peter Sellers, Woody Allen, and more into one extraordinary image. Shirley MacLaine and David Niven look completely comfortable together, another example of how behind-the-scenes photographs often reveal more warmth than formal portraits ever could. Before Goldie Hawn became internationally famous, She posed with young ballet students in Arlington, Virginia, in 1964, looking more teacher than future movie star. Joan Crawford's 1956 London moment is wonderfully unglamorous. Someone simply bites a loose thread from her dress at the Dorchester Hotel before it becomes a problem. Barbara Rush appears relaxed outdoors, softening the polished beauty usually associated with mid-century Hollywood portraits. Lucille Ball proudly poses with her puppies atop a barbecue she built at her Chatsworth home, a quirky personal project inspired by memories of Cuba. Richard Burton, Elizabeth Taylor, and Montgomery Clift sit together at the 1964 premiere of The Night of the Iguana, turning one table into Hollywood history. Claudia Cardinale looks absorbed in her own world, far removed from the grand productions that made her famous. Judy Garland and Mickey Rooney in 1941 capture the youthful chemistry that made them one of the era's most recognizable screen pairings. Loretta Young embraces Jane Wyman after Wyman's Best Actress win for Johnny Belinda in 1949, preserving the emotion just beyond the formal Academy Awards stage. Farley Granger, Shelley Winters, Monica Lewis, and Cy Howard crowd into a lively, social moment, exactly the kind of candid group photograph that reveals old Hollywood's human side. Betty Grable, running through the surf, feels cheerful and timeless despite the unmistakably vintage styling. Franchot Tone, Joan Crawford, Barbara Stanwyck, and Robert Taylor share a table, bringing several major studio-era careers together in one surprisingly intimate frame. Jean Harlow and her mother pose for an MGM Mother's Day publicity session in 1932, showing how carefully studios could turn family life into promotion. Janet Leigh and Dean Martin share an affectionate, spontaneous-looking embrace, a photograph that works because neither seems concerned with maintaining a perfect pose. Martha Vickers, photographed around 1945, makes the classic pin-up style of the period feel playful rather than formal. Steve Brandt was one of Sharon Tate's closest friends, and after her death he publicly defended her memory against sensational stories about drugs and partying. Carole Lombard in 1934 brings a sharper, almost architectural elegance to the frame, showing why she remained so compelling even in simple studio photography. June Allison and Ginger Rogers lean toward each other with real affection, turning a formal occasion into something that feels personal and familiar. Sybil Shepherd steps beside a car with easy 1970s confidence, in a moment that barely feels staged. Joan Fontaine's close portrait is quieter and more introspective, reminding us that old Hollywood glamour could be just as powerful without a smile. On the set of Spellbound in 1945, Gregory Peck and Ingrid Bergman are caught between scenes, where the darkness around them makes the moment feel unusually intimate. Frank Sinatra and Jerry Lewis are laughing so hard that the photograph almost has sound, capturing the kind of chemistry no carefully posed portrait could manufacture. Katharine Hepburn relaxes on the steps in Venice during summertime in 1955, looking completely at home in a city that became part of the film's atmosphere. Olivia de Havilland, James Cagney, and Charles Boyer share another cheerful Hollywood gathering, the kind of cross-career encounter that feels almost impossible today. Barbie Benton's early 1980s snapshot brings a brighter television-era energy after so many classic black-and-white portraits. Lana Turner pulls an exaggerated expression at the table, proving that even one of Hollywood's great glamour icons could enjoy looking completely unserious. During World War II, Hattie McDaniel and Bette Davis were photographed together, a rare frame connecting two women whose careers helped define very different parts of studio-era Hollywood. Vivien Leigh and Deborah Kerr share a playful outdoor moment, showing two celebrated dramatic actresses in a setting that feels wonderfully light-hearted. Robert Taylor and Barbara Stanwyck married in May 1939, and this photograph catches the couple at the beginning of one of classic Hollywood's most closely watched unions. Robert Montgomery and Carole Lombard look caught in the middle of a joke, another reminder that movie stars were often most memorable when they stopped posing. Debbie Reynolds and Jane Powell even shared an April 1st birthday, though in different years, and this cheerful cake photograph makes the coincidence feel perfectly appropriate. Audrey Hepburn and Gregory Peck stand together with the polished chemistry that made Roman Holiday unforgettable, yet the candid quality keeps the moment from feeling staged. Marilyn Monroe holds a portrait of Abraham Lincoln in a wonderfully unexpected 1,954 photograph by Milton Green, mixing Hollywood glamour with a surprising piece of American history. Veronica Lake appears again, showing how dramatically lighting, hair, and wardrobe could transform a familiar face. Grace Kelly and Prince Rainier were photographed in her New York apartment in January 1956, creating the first official portraits released after their engagement announcement. On the set of Rosemary's Baby in 1967, Mia Farrow looks relaxed beside the production equipment, a stark contrast to the unsettling film being created around her. Gene Tierney's 1940s restaurant portrait captures a different kind of glamour, elegant but relaxed enough to feel like a private evening rather than a publicity session. Catherine Ross sits quietly on the set of The Graduate, and the reflective mood feels almost like a private pause inside a film that would become iconic. Gloria Graham celebrates her birthday with Humphrey Bogart and director Nicholas Ray on In a Lonely Place, a warm moment preserved from November 1949. Finally, Pier Angeli and Kirk Douglas rest together on the set of The Story of Three Loves in 1952, ending this collection on a quiet, human note. Old Hollywood looked polished from a distance, but photographs like these reveal the pauses, jokes, friendships, and ordinary moments in between. Subscribe for more stories hidden inside the archive.